Welcome to Teaching Artistry with Courtney J. Body. That's me. This is a podcast that celebrates artists and advocates for community engagement. And like you, I'm home and I'm looking to connect. And so we've launched this video series in partnership with Creative Generation called Keep Making Art. This is where I'm talking to creatives who are making and sharing art or they're guiding others to make and share art. And so if you haven't already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also follow us on all the social media platforms. What are they? Facebook, their Twitter, and Instagram. And now let's get to our first and only guest for today, Dr. Jennifer Katona. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Courtney.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you. Today I got to take a big old long walk and that felt great.
Good to get outside.
Yeah. How are you and your family doing?
We are good. We are hunkered down in Connecticut. It's my husband and I and our 3 kids. So having a 2-year-old's like having a live squirrel in your house, but we're good.
Cute squirrel.
He's a cute squirrel.
He's a cute squirrel. So tell us, how do you identify as an artist?
I am a choreographer. I started dancing when I was in 2nd grade and I haven't really stopped. Now these days it's a little bit more freeze dancing in my living room, but I do choreograph 1 or 2 shows a year. I work with my mom's company out in Massachusetts. And right before we all came home, we were working on Fiddler on the Roof. The Saturday before we closed, I had just gone and taught to life in the wedding dance and we had to shut it down.
You know, you're somebody else talked about Fiddler on the Roof. There's something, but Marisol, who was a guest, she sang a song from it, the prayer song, the Seder song, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's a timely show. I think so many schools were starting to do it because it's a show about acceptance and change, and those are the times we're in. So,
well, we need more of that, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
So, what are other roles that you have in the field of arts or arts education?
Yeah, so my day job, I'm the Director of Arts Education for the Norwalk Public Schools. My exact title is Senior Manager of Visual and Performing Arts. So we are a K-12 district, Title I district in Southern Connecticut. There are 20 schools here, 12 elementary, 4 middle, 4 high schools. We've got about 82 teachers. And we oversee all the different visual and performing arts. We were just named one of the best communities in the country for music education. So it's a really robust music education district.
Wow.
And I started in August and trying to bring some of the theater and dance to the already really rich arts that they have here.
Well, congratulations to your district for that.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Award.
Yeah.
We have been friends for a very long time.
We have.
And in thinking about why in partnership with Creative Generation, why we launched this video series, I've been sort of scouring the interwebs, thinking about people that I already know. But when I saw the fact that you all got that award, I was like, oh, this is kind of perfect. People should know about it through here.
Yeah. It was a nice honor to get, and it was really nice. And I was sharing this. We got the notification last week, so all the teachers have been home, kind of feeling a little bit isolated, feeling maybe a little bit stressed out. This is a really hard time. So it was really nice to get to share that good news with them in the district. And it gave us a moment to celebrate, which it was nice. It was a good treat. It was a good day.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about how has the transition been in your district in Connecticut, Norwalk, right? So
yeah.
What was that transition like for you all? And then, the stress levels, I can imagine, but share.
Yeah. Our transition to remote learning was really good considering. So we got my boss would like to say, we had some good runway. We had a good head start on it. We closed down on Friday. I think it was the 12th of March, but we started planning for that on Monday. And it was about 72 hours of round the clock preparation, making sure everybody had their Chromebooks, but there was a really clear plan on what our remote learning would look like. We thought it was for 2 weeks. So that's where we got the little bit of a hiccup, but we got all our teachers into the buildings. They made beautiful packets. They were so intentional and with great care. And we were really good at deploying everything. And so that was all really good. We made sure everybody still had food. And now it's just the clock keeps ticking and we're still here, and so it's been after that. So I think we're doing a really good job we're a pretty diverse district socioeconomically speaking, so making sure that every child is getting the same access to a quality education is a priority, and I think we're doing a pretty good job, but it's stressful. It's really
Yeah.
stressful.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know. Like, actually, you're the first person I think that I've talked to in us that works. No, that's not true. I guess I talked to Margie, who works in Philadelphia in their
Yeah.
public school system, and she is a special education advisor, teacher advisor, or coach, or something like that. So you are supporting 82 teachers.
Yeah.
Who are doing music education, visual education, visual arts education,
Yep.
all the arts, or just those two disciplines?
Mainly those two disciplines. We have 4 theater classes in district that are also running. So our 2 of our middle schools and 1 of our high schools and 1 of our elementary schools also have theater teachers. But so yeah, all disciplines, they're all still getting graded, become very aware very quickly about all the technologies, all the ways that you can still run classes, choirs with 50 or 60 kids. How are we still giving formative assessments and giving them feedback? And then how are we honoring our seniors and our 8th graders and our 5th graders that should be moving up? So it's a lot. And then from central office, we divide and conquer regardless of your content area to support. We send out weekly packets, about 5,000 weekly packets to our K-3 students for paper and pencil work, because we don't know if they have technology. We didn't hand it out. So I oversee kindergarten. So I make sure that I work with a team, special ed, language learners.
Yeah, sure. How are you getting those materials out to them?
Well, we work with a service that we send it as PDFs and then they print and mail them. But we have a pretty big calendar, then we have to make sure we stay on that calendar. We can't get off. So it's a lot of work, because we got to make sure that we're getting it out, and they can't be too thick, because if we go over, then we pay, so there's a lot of details.
Yeah, I might want to talk more with you offline, because I was talking to James Miles, and through ArtsCore, they've been able to like drop. He's in Seattle. I'm working in a specific school district, but they're able to drop off those packets in a just a few sites. It's like a handful of sites.
Yeah.
And, New York City is big.
Yeah.
As an arts organization, I'm trying to figure out, because we are going to be providing digital resources for schools through all their digital platforms, or trying to make them as malleable as possible for the digital platforms, because my understanding is that it's not that I'm still trying to understand exactly, but it feels like it's all happening on the teacher level as opposed to the school or the system level.
I think that's different. I mean, probably in New York City that's happening, because that's such a massive school district. I know here we're trying to balance that lifting act for them. So we provide core packets with a team of teachers, like coaches at central office level, and then we ask the teachers to supplement those with the needs of their students through daily emails. So a lot of teachers got kind of crash coursing on how to make YouTube channels so that they can communicate. We're trying to get everybody on Zoom and lock those down with all the securities that we need to keep everyone safe. So it's been an ever-changing week to week. So when we realized it was going to be more than 2 weeks, we got everyone on Zoom, and then Zoom kind of came out and said, maybe we need to lock the door. So then we figured out so it was like every week there's always like a new hurdle. And then we were still, sending packets out of our mailroom. But then the virus got bigger and we needed to close that down. So just when we think we've solved it, something new comes. So it's been a lesson in flexibility.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it sounds great that you've been able to be nimble enough to be responsive and pivot in moments that you need to. And at the core of it, it's all about serving the kids.
Yeah, we have 12,000. You guys, New York City has 1.3 now, I think. So, it's a lot easier to manage our 12,000.
Nevertheless.
Yeah.
But I think looking to some of those smaller districts actually could be helpful. Maybe systemically, it's more challenging for the largest school system, but those of us who work inside of it or work alongside of it and dip a toe every once in a while, how we can be thinking about the fact that we work with a certain set of constituents that are part of that larger 1.1 or 1.3 million kids. So if we were taking a piece of it, at least in terms of what we have to offer, and thinking about, how can we figure out how to get packets of the printable materials to you so that you can get them to your kids, or, we can be thinking in that way to continue to thwart inequity.
Yeah, I think it's really smart for arts organizations to do that, because the world was so generous, and like technology got thrown at everybody and everything was free, and every organization put up every video they ever had, and it's like, but that's also overwhelming. So part of my job is to kind of parse through that and say, why don't you take a look at these 2 or 3, and then how can we, how can we share? But it's been the partners that we had before this that I went to, and they just said, well, what exactly do you need? And I was like, I need this. I don't, I know there's a million things out there. I need these 2 very specific things. And those have been the most meaningful, the best help for us. Yeah.
So you shared with me a very sweet video. Do you want to set it up, and I'll
so these have become very trendy, right? All of these virtual choirs and virtual bands. So we are following suit, and this is one of our middle school 7th and 8th grade band, and this is their band teacher, Tiago Sosa, and his brother helped edit it, his brother in Brazil. But these are some of our 7th and 8th graders performing.
Oh,
Oh, they did such a good job.
oh,
Yes.
so
So
good.
we made sure, and when we sent everyone home, that we sent home that they all had their instruments. And then when we realized we were going to be gone longer, we had 2 days where we let everybody, we figured out how to get everyone's instruments back out of the building. So if they'd forgotten them, we made special trips. And they opened all the middle schools and high schools for 2 days,
Mm.
and elementary schools to get their instruments out.
And so let me, like, what's the what's the grading on that? I mean, is there a grade, or is that just, like, it's really heartwarming to see kids, frankly.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't seen kids in so long, and I love
I
them so
know,
much.
I know.
Their energy is so wonderful. And so, what are you hearing from your teachers about that kind of connection, or the relationship building, or
Yeah.
how are the kids actually doing?
Yeah, I think the kids are doing okay overall. We know that some of our students, and this is not just my district, this is kids, families, that this time varies for some families. So some families are really enjoying this time, and it's a nice bonding, and they get to be home. And for some families, it's a real struggle, and for various reasons. So that's what's happening in our district. So some of our families are thriving and doing really great, and some are really struggling. So the kids who gravitate towards art, visual, performing in whatever capacity, it's usually their outlet. So they're all really happy to have it. They're happy to be able to sing. They're happy to be able to play their instrument. I was looking at the boy with the drums, wondering
I
how
love
I would
that.
feel quarantined with somebody drumming. But I was like,
Oh, that's so funny. I wasn't even thinking I loved watching that boy with the drums
me
because
too.
of the Pink Floyd
Yeah, in the
wall
background. But I was like,
background.
do you
Like,
imagine quarantine with a drummer? And then our visual artists, the true artists. So there's kids who, it's a class and whatever, but the ones who are artists, yeah, they're really grateful to still have the arts. Because I think in some districts it became an extra or a special or something if you ran out of time or once a week, but we kept it in full force.
that's very heartwarming to
It
hear.
is, yeah,
As we learn, you said this earlier, that as more information comes out, you have to pivot and whatnot. And this week, it's budget and fiscal time, and the states are trying to figure out what their shortfall is and what that means for their various districts throughout their states. Yesterday, James said that Washington has like a million, like 1 million or 1 billion, I think probably $1 billion deficit. And what
yeah,
does that mean? New York State also has a huge deficit, and there are decisions being made about what types of, where the cuts come from.
yeah,
And they're making very, very significant cuts throughout the education system.
yeah,
And as we know, just historically, we know that the arts are often the first thing that get cut. They say
sure,
things like, it's time to get back to basics,
yeah,
which we know that the arts are essential and are part of the basic foundations for how kids can learn, express,
yep,
have hope in a time when there is a lot of reason to have no hope, right?
mm-hmm.
And so my big question that I ask everybody, I've already posed it to you like 12 times, but is, how do you think that artists, and you
Yeah,
come from our world, the arts education, cultural world, you have worked there, you worked in higher education, now you're working for K through 12. But how can artists be activated in this moment to really affect, impact, and ignite the kind of change that we actually know we need, that if this moment doesn't tell us in terms of policy making, then I think we're lost.
yeah,
So what do we
yeah.
do?
Fix it. So the big thing coming out of this is going, and I've said this a few times in a few different platforms. The big thing coming out of this is going to be the socio-emotional needs of our kids. And we see these in memes and all, we'll catch your kids up on math and science and reading. We can't catch them up on the socio-emotional part of this quarantine. We could throw facts and figures and numbers at our administrators to tell them how that is the arts. The biggest hole that our kids are going to come back with can be filled with the arts. 100%. So I think that our artists, our culturals, our teaching artists need to kind of get on that same page and be ringing that bell. You know, we saw it after 9/11. We were both in the city at 9/11. We've seen it if we look to New Orleans after the hurricane, after Katrina. We know that the arts communities are what brought the people back. You know, construction workers and things brought the buildings back, but we brought the people back. We brought the communities back. We brought, you know, you don't even have to look further than Disney single, like what happens in times of crisis, right? The artists go, like, who comes together? It's the arts communities. I think there's one on tonight while we're filming this.
Yes.
That's what we do, right? We are the heart. We are students and studiers of empathy, of walking in someone else's shoes, of finding the compassion. If we don't need that now, I don't know when we need it. So I think that, you know, unfortunately, I think administrators and people who have numbers think of things pretty black and white. And when we go in with, but we're the heart, I do think that sometimes isn't the argument that's going to win us the battle. But I think if we can talk about that, those children don't have a chance in the math class if their brains are not there yet, if their emotional states are not there yet. So, you know, it's a hard time. Right before this happened, we've been seeing trends of schools building wellness rooms and just like take a break rooms, because the socio-emotional needs of our students was finally starting to be part of the conversation. So I think we need to grab hold of that, remind people that's not changing. In fact, it's ever more. And we're the solution. And I think if we can come at it from a place of, let us solve that problem for you, right? Because I think what's going to happen is they're going to like look to cut the arts, but then they're going to look to bring in. And it's like, well, you don't need to do that.
Have it both ways. Like, don't cut us so that we can be there. So you shouldn't. Yeah, I agree. Agreed.
Well, like cut the arts, but like bring in counselors, and you're like, that's great. Counselors are needed.
Important. It is important, but we should be a part of that.
But we can do a lot of the stuff you're hoping you're going to pay for.
Yeah, I hadn't like, I love these conversations for the fact that like I keep getting filled and like trying to figure out. Okay. So I love the metaphor of, well, one, just the science about how trauma affects brain development. And so that's, you know, there's mental health, which what I find very interesting is that both the governor, at least in this state, the governor and the mayor are both like, you know, we are taking care of each other. There are free services for mental health. And there's a doctor, Dr. Williams, he talked about how the medical professionals are on the front line right now. But if you think about this as a triathlon, that the next to be on the front lines are the mental health workers and the artists. And so for these budget cuts to come through, that we're cutting things, stripping things away. Right. And of course, yes, I come in with the heart, the social emotional part, but you're right, like we need to be hitting it in a holistic way in terms of having those conversations and have creative problem solving that's going to be systemic and not the way I think sometimes it takes us a long time to get to that place where wellness is now like, oh, we understand that this is actually, if our kids are hungry, if our kids are not, or they're dealing with trauma, they're not going to be able to learn, or their learning will be, or their behavior will be such that they can't get to that place of being able to be ready to receive, ready to engage, ready to contribute and be a part of their learning pathways. So I'm starting to think now, these individual conversations are fantastic, but I feel like that it might make sense for me to pull together a couple more guests into some sort of panel discussion that will help to then have me send this to somebody who is a policymaker.
Good. Yeah. This back to the basics or literacy and math. Yeah, kids need literacy and math. No one in the arts community would ever argue that. But we can't go so far back to the basics that we forget what we've gained in the last 10 years with our research and what we know. And the arts is, so many strides that we've made in the arts community that we are more than just fun. And we're more than just doing
enrichment. Like that term enrichment, if you've listened to Michael Wiggins, means nothing. Yeah. But like so
Right. So we can't go so far back to back to basics. But even the funnier thing on top of that is basics. Well, all right. So at our very earliest forms of school, it was we had music and art appreciation.
Yep.
Right along. So if you want to go all the way back, then there we are.
Yeah, there you are. But
Yeah.
forget everything else. Let's start there and then build all the other pieces in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jen, well, I love talking to you. Thank you so much for being a part of this show. Thank you for sharing that wonderful. Thank you to that teacher who gave us permission to share.
Yes, thank you. Yeah,
I was very concerned about that, but I'm really happy because I really love seeing kids. And let's keep talking. Yeah.
Yes, it's always good to see you. Thanks for having me, Courtney.
Thanks everybody for watching. And if you haven't already, and I keep telling you this, that we are also recording this for our podcast. So if you're not already, subscribe to Teaching Artistry with Courtney J. Body through SoundCloud or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast player. And remember, keep making art.